The moment Dawn Rogers clamped her hand over the mafia boss's mouth and hissed, "Shut up," she became either his salvation or his next victim, and neither of them knew which yet. Sung Hoon Han had returned home 3 hours early to find his most trusted second-in-command robbing his safe. But he didn't know that. Didn't know the guns were already trained on the hallway where he stood. Didn't know that his invisible maid had been watching his entire organization unravel for weeks. What he was about to discover would force him to trust the one person he'd never even bothered to notice, and what she was about to reveal would prove she was never just a maid at all. If you want to know how she ended up in the world of the Mafia boss, subscribe and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. Every view helps bring more stories like this to life. The November rain had been battering the Hudson River shoreline for 3 hours straight, the kind of cold that seeped through stone and turned luxury penthouses into beautiful prisons. Dawn Rogers wiped down the marble console table in Sung Hoon Han's foyer, her movements practiced and invisible. The chemical bite of furniture polish, mixed with the faint scent of expensive cologne that lingered in spaces where powerful men passed through without noticing the people who cleaned up after them. The wall clock in the hallway read 2:47 p.m. She had been working in this penthouse for 6 months, rising at 5:30 every morning, cleaning until the enforcers rotated shifts at midnight, sleeping in the small staff quarters off the kitchen. Before this, she had been an intelligence analyst with a government salary and a security clearance. Before that, a promising recruit with sharp instincts and sharper questions. Before everything fell apart and left her with a discharged record, a blacklist, and a sister in a private medical facility upstate whose mounting bills made choices like this one inevitable. The job paid $4,000 a week in cash. No questions, no paperwork, no trail. That money kept Camila alive. It kept the machines running, and the doctors checking vitals, and Dawn's guilt at bay for another 7 days. Sung Hoon Han was a ghost in his own home. He appeared and vanished at unpredictable hours, surrounded by men who moved like coiled violence in tailored suits. He never looked at Dawn directly, never acknowledged her beyond curt instructions delivered through Jericho Bout, his cold-eyed second-in-command. To Sung Hoon Han, Dawn was furniture, necessary but forgettable, like the marble floors she polished or the imported artwork she dusted, which made what happened next all the more catastrophic. The double doors swung open 3 hours ahead of schedule. Sung Hoon Han stepped through, his jaw tight, his shoulders rigid beneath a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Dawn made in a month. He had come from a meeting that went wrong. She could read it in the controlled fury of his movements, the way his hand hovered near the concealed weapon at his hip. Dawn's entire body locked up. She recognized disaster before he did. From the private study down the hall came the sound of hushed voices, urgent, clipped, conspiratorial. The kind of voices that did not belong in an empty penthouse, the kind that meant betrayal. Sung Hoon Han heard them too. His eyes narrowed, his hand moved toward his weapon. Dawn crossed the distance between them in 3 strides. She clamped her gloved hand over his mouth and hissed 2 words with a ferocity that froze him in place. "Shut up." His eyes went wide, shock, rage, murderous confusion all colliding in a single heartbeat. But Dawn's grip did not falter. She met his stare with an intensity that communicated everything in the space between breaths. "They will kill you if they know you are here. Trust me or die." Sung Hoon Han was a man who commanded armies, who erased problems with a phone call, who had built an empire on fear and precision. But something in Dawn's expression, something desperate and certain, made him go still. She pulled him backward, maneuvering them both into the shadows of the hallway, her hand still covering his mouth, her heart hammered against her ribs. Through the partially open study door, they could hear Jericho Bout speaking in low, measured sentences. "Transfer completes in 90 minutes. By the time he realizes what is missing, we will be in Seoul with enough leverage to dismantle his entire operation." A second voice, Langston Quaid, one of the enforcers Dawn recognized from morning security rotations. "What about the maid?" Silence. Then Jericho's voice, flat and final. She is nobody. We will handle her after. Dawn felt Sung Hoon Han's body tense against hers. Slowly, carefully, she removed her hand from his mouth. He did not speak. He waited. Dawn leaned in close, her voice barely audible. They planted listening devices in every room. If you confront them now, the people they are working with will know. You will be walking into an ambush. His whisper was lethal, controlled. How do you know this? Because I found the devices 2 weeks ago while cleaning. I did not know what they were for until today. His jaw tightened. Why did you not tell me? Dawn met his eyes. Because I am a maid, Mr. Han. Who would believe me? It was the truth. And it landed like a blade. What Sung Hoon Han did not know, what no one in his organization knew, was that Dawn Rogers was not just a maid. She was a former intelligence analyst with the Defense Intelligence Agency, dishonorably discharged 3 years earlier after refusing to participate in an illegal surveillance operation. She had been blacklisted, erased from the system, and left to rebuild a life from nothing. When Camila was injured in what police called a random mugging, Dawn knew better. The attack had been a message: stay silent or lose everything. Taking the job in Sung Hoon Han's household was not desperation, it was strategy. Because Dawn had recognized Jericho Bout the moment she saw him. He had been part of the operation she had refused to join, the one that destroyed her career. She had been waiting, watching, gathering evidence. And now, the conspiracy she had been hunting had just revealed itself inside the home of one of New York's most dangerous men. The panic room was smaller than Dawn expected. Steel-reinforced walls, no windows, a single flickering monitor displaying security feeds from throughout the penthouse. The air smelled metallic and recycled, like breathing inside a sealed vault. Sung Hoon Han locked the door behind them with a series of codes punched into a biometric panel. The mechanism engaged with a hydraulic hiss that made Dawn's chest tighten. She was trapped now, not just with the conspiracy unfolding outside, but with a man whose reputation was built on making problems disappear. He turned to face her, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Talk. His voice was quiet, controlled, more dangerous than if he had shouted. You have 30 seconds to tell me who you really are before I decide you are part of this. Dawn's pulse hammered in her throat. She could lie, she could deflect. But lies only worked on people who did not know how to spot them, and Sung Hoon Han had built an empire on reading deception. My name is Dawn Rogers, she began, keeping her voice steady. 3 years ago, I was an intelligence analyst with the Defense Intelligence Agency. I was discharged after refusing to participate in an illegal surveillance operation targeting American citizens without warrants. His expression did not change, but something shifted in his eyes. Calculation. Reassessment. They blacklisted me, Dawn continued, destroyed my credentials, my references, my ability to work in any legitimate capacity. I took this job because I needed the money. My sister is in a private medical facility upstate. The bills do not stop, and neither do I. Why should I believe you? Dawn pulled something from the pocket of her apron, a small electronic scanner, no bigger than a smartphone, its casing scratched and worn. Sung Hoon's hand moved instinctively toward his weapon. Relax, Dawn said, holding the device up where he could see it. If I wanted you dead, I would have let Jericho shoot you in the foyer. She activated the scanner. A low-frequency hum filled the room as the device cycled through electromagnetic signatures. Dawn moved methodically along the walls, watching the readings spike and fall. The bugs Jericho planted are basic, she explained, her tone shifting into something clinical, professional. Commercial-grade surveillance, the kind you can buy online if you know where to look. Short-range transmission, probably feeding to a receiver within 200 meters. Amateur work for someone trying to look professional. Sung-hoon watched her with the intensity of a predator studying prey. How do you know what to look for? Because this is what I did for 3 years before they threw me away. Dawn paused at the ventilation grate in the corner, her scanner emitting a sharp, insistent beep. And because I have been mapping your security for the past 6 months. The silence that followed was suffocating. You have been spying on me. I have been surviving, Dawn corrected, meeting his gaze without flinching. There is a difference. Before Sung-hoon could respond, a voice crackled through the monitor. Jericho Bout, still in the study, still rifling through stolen files. But it was his next words that made both of them freeze. What about the maid? She sees too much, hears too much. Langston Quaid's response was casual, unbothered. Does it matter? She will be gone by tonight anyway. Jericho's voice dropped lower, colder. Make it clean, no traces. I do not want Han asking questions when he gets back. Dawn felt the blood drain from her face. Sung-hoon's expression hardened into something lethal. They were going to kill you, he said quietly. With or without this betrayal. I know. Dawn's hands trembled as she adjusted the scanner settings. I figured it out 2 days ago when I overheard Langston asking about body disposal protocols. I thought I had more time to disappear. Why stay? The question caught her off guard. Dawn looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something unexpected beneath the controlled violence. Genuine confusion. As if the idea of someone choosing to stay in danger was incomprehensible. Because my sister needs another month of treatment before I can move her, Dawn said simply. And because running without proof would not have stopped them from finding me. Sung-hoon studied her for a long moment. When he spoke again, his tone had shifted, not softer, but different. Less interrogation, more negotiation. You said Jericho's bugs are amateur work. What else did you find? Dawn returned to the ventilation grate and carefully pried it open. Inside, nestled against the ductwork, was a device that made her stomach drop. This, she said, extracting it with careful fingers. The transmitter was sleek, military grade, its casing marked with serial numbers that had been partially filed away. Dawn held it up to the light, and Sung-hoon moved closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. That is not Jericho's, he said. No. Dawn's voice was grim. This is federal. Maybe CIA, maybe NSA. Whoever placed this has resources Jericho could never access. The implications settled over them like falling ash. Jericho's betrayal was not an isolated conspiracy. It was part of something larger, something that had been watching Sung-hoon Han's operation long before a maid started finding breadcrumbs. Sung-hoon took the device from her hands, turning it over with the careful precision of someone who understood exactly how dangerous it was. Someone has been listening to everything, he said. Not just today, for months, maybe longer. Yes. And you found this weeks ago. Yes. Why not use it as leverage? Sell the information? Disappear with enough money to save your sister? Dawn met his eyes. Because selling secrets to men like you is how people like me end up in the Hudson River. I learned that lesson the first time. For the first time since entering the panic room, something that might have been respect flickered across Sung-hoon Han's face. You are not just a maid, he said. No, Dawn agreed. I am not. Outside the reinforced walls, Jericho and his conspirators continued their theft, unaware that the two people they had underestimated were now standing together in the dark, bound not by trust, but by the sudden, inescapable knowledge that they were both being hunted by something far more dangerous than each other. Dawn laid the two surveillance devices side by side on the panic room's steel table. Under the harsh fluorescent light, the differences were stark. This one, she said, pointing to Jericho's bug, transmits on a civilian frequency. Battery life of maybe 72 hours before it needs replacing. Range is limited. Whoever is listening has to be close, probably in a vehicle parked within a block radius. It is the kind of equipment you use when you are in a hurry and do not have access to better resources. She shifted to the federal device. This one operates on encrypted military channels. Solar-powered microcharger means it can run indefinitely. The transmission range is global. It bounces through satellite relays. Whoever placed this could be listening from anywhere in the world. Sung-hoon leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. You are saying someone in my organization gave federal agents access to my home. I am saying someone in your organization has been working with them long enough to coordinate installations without triggering your security protocols. Dawn met his gaze. How many people have unrestricted access to your private spaces? His jaw tightened. 4. Jericho, Langston, Desmond, and Bronte Foss. Then one of them is not just betraying you for money. They are betraying you for immunity. The implication hung between them like a blade. Sung-hoon pushed off the wall and began pacing the small space. 3 steps forward, 3 steps back. Dawn watched the controlled violence in his movements, the way his hands flexed and released, as if searching for something to break. She noticed other things, too. The slight hitch in his left shoulder when he turned, suggesting an old injury that never healed properly. The shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. The way his right hand kept drifting toward his ribs, where she suspected another wound lay hidden beneath the expensive tailoring. This was a man held together by will and vengeance, nothing more. You are hurt, Dawn said quietly. Sung-hoon stopped pacing. That is none of your concern. It is if you are planning to confront armed men while bleeding internally. His eyes snapped to hers, sharp and lethal. How do you know about that? Because I have been watching you limp through this penthouse for 3 weeks. You favor your right side. You take shallow breaths when you think no one is looking. And 2 days ago, I found bloodstains on the bathroom towels you tried to hide in the bottom of the hamper. The silence that followed was suffocating. Sung-hoon stared at her with an intensity that made her skin prickle, as if he were seeing her for the first time, not as furniture, not as a maid, but as something far more dangerous. What else have you noticed? Everything. Dawn kept her voice steady. That is what intelligence analysts do. We notice patterns. We collect data. We wait for the moment when information becomes leverage. Is that what I am to you? Leverage? You were, Dawn admitted. Until about 20 minutes ago when saving your life became the same thing as saving my own. Sung-hoon moved closer, closing the distance between them until Dawn could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes. I want the full truth. No more pieces. Who are you really after? Dawn held his stare, weighing risk against necessity. Finally, she spoke. Jericho Boot. Except that is not his real name. 3 years ago, he was part of the surveillance operation I refused to join, the one that destroyed my career. Back then, he went by a different identity. When I saw him standing in your foyer 6 months ago, I knew he was still working for the same people who burned me. Sung-hoon's expression darkened. You took this job to spy on him. I took this job to gather evidence, to prove that the operation I was accused of lying about actually existed, to clear my name and get my life back. And my organization was just collateral damage? Your organization was the perfect cover, Dawn said bluntly. No one questions a maid. No one notices when she empties trash cans full of shredded documents or overhears phone conversations in languages she is not supposed to understand. I have been building a case against Jericho for months. I just did not expect him to move this quickly. Sung-hoon turned away, his shoulders rigid with tension. When he spoke again, his voice was dangerously soft. You have been in my home for half a year, watching, listening, recording my movements, my security rotations, my vulnerabilities, and I never saw you. That was the point, he laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You are either the most brilliant operative I have encountered, or the most reckless. I prefer to think of myself as desperate. Sung-hoon turned back to face her. Desperation makes people dangerous. So does betrayal. They stared at each other across the small space, two people bound by circumstance and necessity, neither willing to trust, but both unable to walk away. Finally, Sung-hoon spoke. Jericho and his men will leave through the service elevator in approximately 40 minutes. They cannot risk staying longer. The security logs will show anomalies and questions will be asked. We have a small window to act. What are you proposing? Not trust, Sung-hoon said. Survival. You want evidence against Jericho. I want to eliminate the traitors in my organization before they destroy everything I have built. Our interests align. Dawn considered this. What did you have in mind? Sung-hoon pulled up the security feeds on the monitor, his fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. I am going to give you something better than evidence. I am going to give you a confession, but you will do exactly as I say when I say it. No questions, no hesitation. And if I refuse? Then Jericho kills you tonight. The federal agents listening through those bugs bury your sister's medical facility in red tape until she dies waiting for treatment. And I handle this situation the way I handle all betrayals, with fire and blood. He glanced at her. Your choice. Dawn looked at the monitor, where Jericho and his conspirators continued loading stolen files into reinforced cases. She thought of Camila, trapped in a facility upstate, dependent on machines and medications Dawn could barely afford. She thought of 3 years spent rebuilding a life from ashes, only to watch it threaten to collapse again. She thought of the federal bugs hidden throughout the penthouse, listening to every word, every breath, every moment of weakness. And she made her choice. Tell me the plan, Dawn said. Sung-hoon smiled, a cold, predatory expression that promised violence. We are going to trap them. And when they realize what is happening, we are going to make them tell us everything. The clock on the monitor read 3:17 p.m. They had less than 30 minutes to prepare. Dawn's fingers moved across the security panel with the precision of someone who had memorized every keystroke. She rerouted the building's automated protocols, overriding the standard evening sequence. On the monitor, she watched the study door's magnetic locks engage with silent finality. Jericho Bout noticed immediately. He moved to the door, pulled the handle. Nothing. His expression shifted from confusion to alarm in the span of a heartbeat. We are locked in, he said, his voice sharp over the audio feed. Langston Quaid crossed to the window. Fire escape? Sealed, Desmond Rue confirmed, checking his phone. Security system just went into lockdown mode. Everything is frozen. Sung-hoon stood behind Dawn, watching the trapped men with an expression that promised death. His hand rested on the weapon holstered at his hip, fingers drumming a slow, methodical rhythm against the grip. Now, he said quietly, we end this. He moved toward the panic room door. Dawn stepped into his path. Move, Sung-hoon ordered. No. His eyes went cold. You do not give me orders in my own home. If you go in there and execute them, the federal agents listening through those bugs will have everything they need to destroy you. Dawn kept her voice level, firm. They are waiting for you to do something violent, something they can use. Do not give it to them. They betrayed me. I know. But there is a better way. Sung-hoon's jaw clenched. What are you proposing? Dawn pulled out her personal phone, a cheap prepaid device she had bought with cash 3 months ago. She dialed 911 and held Sung-hoon's gaze as the line connected. 911, what is your emergency? Dawn let her voice shake, let fear bleed into every syllable. Please, you have to help me. I am a maid at a penthouse on Riverside Drive. There are armed men here. They have guns. They said they are going to kill me. I am hiding, but I do not know how long before they find me. Sung-hoon's eyes widened fractionally, surprise then understanding. Ma'am, can you tell me your exact location? Dawn rattled off the address, her voice breaking convincingly. Please hurry. I can hear them looking for me. Please. She ended the call. Sung-hoon stared at her. You just invited federal law enforcement into my home. I invited them to arrest 3 armed men in the middle of committing a felony. The stolen materials are in plain sight. The weapons are illegal. And you? Dawn met his eyes. You are not even here. For a long moment, Sung-hoon said nothing. Then slowly, something that might have been respect flickered across his face. You are more dangerous than I thought. I learned from the best liars in the intelligence community. Dawn turned back to the monitor. You have maybe 8 minutes before tactical teams arrive. I suggest you use them. Sung-hoon moved with lethal efficiency. He pulled a black duffel bag from a concealed compartment in the panic room wall, extracted a change of clothes, wiped down every surface he had touched. Dawn watched him transform from a mafia boss into a ghost, erasing his presence, his fingerprints, his existence from the penthouse. The service elevator, Dawn said. It bypasses the main security logs if you use the override code. He paused. How do you know about that? I told you. I notice everything. Sung-hoon finished changing, now dressed in nondescript dark clothing that made him look like any other contractor or delivery person. He approached Dawn, reached into his pocket, and pulled out a phone. Small, black, anonymous. Take this, he said. Dawn stared at the burner phone. Why? Because this is not over. His voice dropped to something darker, more intimate. And neither are we. Before she could respond, he was gone, slipping through the panic room's secondary exit, disappearing into the building's infrastructure like smoke. Dawn counted to 60, then emerged from the panic room. She positioned herself in the hallway, disheveled her hair, tore a small rip in her uniform. When the tactical team breached the penthouse 7 minutes later, they found exactly what she had promised: a terrified maid and 3 armed men trapped in a room full of stolen evidence. The arrests were efficient and brutal. Jericho Bout said nothing as they cuffed him, but his eyes found Dawn's across the chaos. The look he gave her promised retribution. Dawn gave her statement to the FBI agents who arrived behind the tactical team. She played her role perfectly. The frightened domestic worker who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time, who had heard suspicious sounds and hidden until help arrived. They believed her. Why would not they? She was just a maid. By 9:30 p.m., Dawn was in a budget motel 15 miles away, paying cash for a room with peeling wallpaper and a television that only worked on 3 channels. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the burner phone Sung-hoon had given her. This is not over. Neither are we. Dawn did not know what that meant, did not want to know. She had done what she came to do, exposed Jericho, gathered evidence, survived another day. Tomorrow she would figure out her next move. Tomorrow she would check on Camila, disappear somewhere new, start rebuilding again. Tomorrow. The knock on the door came at 10:45 p.m. Dawn froze. No one knew she was here. She had used fake names, avoided cameras, taken 3 different buses to throw off any potential tail. She approached the door slowly, looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. On the floor sat a small package wrapped in brown paper. Dawn retrieved it carefully, locked the door, turned every deadbolt. Inside the package was another phone, sleeker, more expensive than the burner Sung-hoon had given her. It was already ringing. Dawn's hands trembled as she answered. Hello, Dawn. The voice was smooth, feminine, accented with something European. Or should I say, former Defense Intelligence Agency Analyst 4478. Dawn's blood turned to ice. Who is this? My name is Dr. Naledi Amsel, the voice continued, each word precisely enunciated. And we need to talk about why you are really in my ex-husband's house. The world tilted. Naledi Amsel, Sung Hoon's ex-wife, the woman who had supposedly died in a laboratory explosion 2 years ago. You are dead, Dawn whispered. Naledi laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Oh, darling, that is exactly what I wanted everyone to believe. But now that you have inserted yourself into my plans, we are going to have a very different kind of conversation. One that involves your sister Camila and the rather precarious nature of her continued survival. Dawn's heart stopped. What did you say? 48 hours, Dawn. That is how long you have to bring me Sung-Hoon Han. After that, Camila's medical complications become permanent. I will be in touch with instructions. The line went dead. Dawn stared at the phone, her entire world collapsing into a single, terrible truth. She had not escaped anything. She had only walked deeper into a trap that had been waiting for her all along. Dawn called back immediately. The phone rang twice before Naledi answered. I thought you might have questions, the woman said pleasantly, as if discussing dinner plans rather than extortion. What do you want with my sister? Dawn's voice cracked despite her best efforts to stay controlled. Oh, Dawn, your sister has been mine for much longer than she has been yours. Naledi paused, and Dawn could hear the smile in her voice. Let me tell you a story. 3 years ago, a promising young architecture student named Camila Rogers volunteered for what she believed was a cognitive enhancement study. Paid research, legitimate university affiliation, all the proper paperwork. Except the study was not about cognition. It was about neural integration, about installing technology directly into the human brain. Dawn felt the room spin. You are lying. Am I? Tell me, Dawn, did the doctors ever explain exactly what caused Camila's brain injury? Did they show you scans that made sense? Or did they simply tell you it was trauma from the attack and expect you to accept it? The truth hit like a physical blow. Dawn had questioned the medical reports, had noticed inconsistencies in the documentation, strange gaps in the timeline, physicians who refused to explain certain procedures. But she had been so desperate to save Camila, so focused on keeping her alive, that she had pushed those doubts aside. The mugging was not random, Naledi continued. It was extraction. Camila tried to run after she discovered what we had done to her. We had to retrieve her before she could expose the program. The brain injury you have been treating for 3 years? That is rejection syndrome from the neural implants I designed. Implants that your sister carries inside her skull right now. Dawn's hands shook so violently she nearly dropped the phone. Why are you telling me this? Because the facility where Camila is receiving treatment? I own it. The doctors monitoring her condition? They work for me. Every medication, every therapy session, every moment of her recovery has been under my direct supervision. I have kept her alive, Dawn. I have kept her stable. And I can end that with a single phone call. Tears streamed down Dawn's face. What do you want? I want my ex-husband's empire, and you are going to help me take it. You have 48 hours to deliver Sung-Hoon Han to the location I will send you. If you fail, if you run, if you tell him about this conversation, Camila's next medical complication will be her last. Do we understand each other? Yes, Dawn whispered. Good. Oh, and Dawn? The federal bugs in the penthouse? Those were mine too. I have been watching both of you for months. Every move you made, every secret you thought you were keeping, I already knew. You were never hunting Jericho. You were being herded exactly where I needed you to be. The line went dead. Dawn collapsed onto the motel bed, her body racked with sobs she had been holding back for 3 years. Every choice she had made, every sacrifice, every desperate gamble, All of it had been orchestrated by a woman she had never met, for purposes she could not fathom. The door to the motel room opened. Dawn's head snapped up, her hand reaching for the small canister of pepper spray in her purse. But it was not Naledi's operative standing in the doorway. It was Sung-hoon Han. He closed the door behind him, his expression unreadable. "You are not difficult to find when you pay for motels with your real credit card." Dawn wiped at her face, trying to compose herself. "How did you— I have been tracking you since you left the penthouse. Did you really think I would let you disappear after what happened today?" He moved further into the room, his eyes cataloging every detail. The tears, the discarded phones, the way her shoulders trembled. "Who called you?" Dawn considered lying, considered running, but exhaustion and terror had stripped away her last defenses. "Your ex-wife," she said flatly. "Naledi Amsel, the one who is supposed to be dead." Sung-hoon went very still. "What did she say?" "That she owns the facility treating my sister. That Camila was part of some kind of experiment. That the attack 3 years ago was not random." Dawn's voice broke. "She wants me to deliver you to her in 48 hours or she kills Camila." The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Dawn waited for Sung-hoon to pull his weapon, to eliminate the threat she now represented. Instead, he pulled a chair from the corner of the room, sat down, and met her eyes with an expression that looked almost like regret. "Your sister was part of a neural implant trial," he said quietly. "Naledi recruited subjects through false research programs at universities across the Northeast. Camila was one of 12 participants. I did not know about the project until 6 months after the trials ended. By then, 11 of the subjects were dead. I thought Naledi had disposed of the 12th. Dawn felt bile rise in her throat. "You knew about this." "I knew Naledi was conducting unauthorized medical research. I did not know the specifics until I found the lab records after her supposed death. I have been searching for the surviving test subject for 2 years." He paused. "I did not know it was your sister until 3 hours ago when I started running background on you." "Why should I believe you?" "Because if I had wanted Camila dead, she would be. And if I had wanted you eliminated, you would have never left that penthouse alive." Sung-hoon leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "Naledi is not trying to kill your sister. She is trying to complete the research. Camila's brain contains the only successful neural integration in history. Technology worth billions to the right buyer. Your sister is not a victim. Naledi wants dead." "She is an asset Naledi wants back." Dawn pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to stop the tears that would not cease. "Then what do I do?" "You stop crying," Sung-hoon said, his voice hard but not unkind. "And you help me get your sister away from the woman who has been using both of us as pieces in a game we did not know we were playing." Dawn looked up at him. "Why would you help me?" "Because Naledi destroyed my organization, faked her death, and has spent 2 years building a shadow network designed to steal everything I built. Because she made me believe she was gone when she was actually orchestrating my downfall." His eyes were black ice. "And because the enemy of my enemy is useful, at least temporarily." It was not trust. It was not even an alliance. It was two desperate people recognizing that survival required cooperation, however fragile. Dawn wiped her face one final time. "What is the plan?" Sung-hoon pulled out a tablet, brought up a series of encrypted files. "We find out where Naledi is keeping Camila. We extract her before the 48-hour deadline, and then we burn Naledi's operation to the ground." "Just like that?" "No," Sung-hoon admitted. "Not just like that. First, we need to talk to someone who knows where the bodies are buried. Someone who has been working with Naledi longer than either of us realized." Dawn's stomach dropped. "Jericho. His real name is Remy Janvier, and he is going to tell us everything." The federal detention facility was a concrete fortress in Lower Manhattan, designed to hold high-value targets awaiting trial. Sung-hoon's contacts had arranged a private interrogation room, off the books, no cameras, no records. The kind of meeting that never officially happened. Dawn sat across from the empty chair, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Sung-hoon stood against the wall behind her, his presence a dark shadow she could feel without looking. "You do not have to do this," he said quietly. "Yes, I do." Dawn's voice was hollow. "If Remy knows where Naledi is keeping Camila, I need to hear it from him." The door opened. Two federal marshals escorted Jericho Bout into the room. Hands cuffed, wearing an orange jumpsuit that stripped away the expensive suits and polished menace. He looked smaller somehow, more human. Then he saw Dawn. The color drained from his face. "No, no, you cannot be here. She cannot be here." One of the marshals shoved him into the chair. "You have 15 minutes. Do not waste them." They left, locking the door behind them. Silence filled the room, like poison gas. Dawn stared at the man she had once trusted more than anyone in the world. The partner who had promised to stand beside her when everything fell apart. The person who had vanished the night before her career was destroyed. "Hello, Remy," she said softly. He flinched at the name. "Dawn, I can explain." "Explain?" The word came out sharp, cutting. "You disappeared. You left me to face the discharge hearing alone. They accused me of fabricating evidence, of paranoia, of being unstable, and you were not there." "I did not have a choice." Remy's voice cracked. "Naledi found out I was helping you. She came to my house. She had photographs of my wife and daughter. She told me if I testified on your behalf, if I corroborated anything you said about the surveillance program, she would kill them both." Dawn's throat tightened. "You never told me you had a family." "Because I was protecting them. Because in our line of work, having people you love makes you vulnerable." Remy leaned forward as far as the cuffs would allow. "She gave me a choice. Abandon you and keep my family alive, or save your career and watch them die. What would you have done?" "I would have found another way." "There was no other way." Remy's eyes glistened. "I have been working for Naledi for 3 years, Dawn. Every operation, every betrayal, every piece of intelligence I fed to Sung-hoon's enemies. It was all to keep Anya and Sophie alive. Naledi has them in a detention facility in Ukraine. If I disobey, if I fail, she makes a phone call and they disappear forever." Sung-hoon spoke for the first time, his voice cold and measured. "Where is Naledi keeping Dawn's sister?" Remy's gaze shifted to Sung-hoon, then back to Dawn. Something passed between them. Recognition, understanding, a complicated history Dawn could not decipher. "You are working with him now?" Remy asked, disbelief coloring his words. "I am working with whoever can help me save Camila," Dawn said. "Where is she?" Remy closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were filled with resignation. "There is a decommissioned psychiatric hospital in the Catskills. Naledi bought it through shell corporations 2 years ago. She converted the subterranean levels into a research facility, medical equipment, holding cells, everything she needs to continue the neural implant trials. That is where she keeps the subjects who survived. That is where your sister is." Dawn felt her chest constrict. "How many subjects are there?" "Just one. Camila is the only person who did not reject the implants. Everyone else either died during installation or suffered catastrophic neural degradation within weeks." Remy's voice dropped. "Your sister is special, Dawn. Her brain adapted to the technology in ways Naledi could not have predicted. That is why she is still alive. That is why Naledi will never let her go." Sung-hoon moved closer to the table. "Security protocols? How many guards? What kind of surveillance?" "Private military contractors. Former special operations, heavily armed. Perimeter sensors can detect movement within 200 meters. Biometric access controls on every entrance. And Naledi has a failsafe. If anyone tries to breach the facility without authorization, the system floods the medical wing with sedative gas." Everyone inside goes unconscious within 90 seconds. Dawn's hands trembled. She would kill her own research subjects? She would sedate them to prevent extraction, then deal with the intruders. Remy met her eyes. Naledi does not make threats she cannot execute. If you go after Camila, you need to be prepared for what she will do to stop you. Sung-hoon pulled out his phone, began typing notes. Access codes, entry points, guard rotations. I need everything. Remy rattled off details, technical specifications, security vulnerabilities, operational patterns he had memorized during his time working with Naledi. Dawn listened. Each piece of information another confirmation that her sister had been living in a nightmare for 3 years, while Dawn remained oblivious. When Remy finished, he looked at Dawn with an expression that broke something inside her. I am sorry. For everything. For leaving you. For not being strong enough to find another way. I know you will never forgive me, but I need you to know I never stopped caring about what happened to you. Dawn stood abruptly, the chair scraping against concrete. You cared so much you let me believe I was insane. You cared so much you watched my career burn while you saved yourself. I saved my family. And I lost mine. Dawn's voice was raw. Camila's attack happened 6 months after you disappeared. If you had stayed, if we had exposed Naledi together, maybe none of this would have happened. Maybe my sister would not have a machine in her brain. Maybe I would not be standing here begging for help from the man who destroyed me. Remy's face crumpled. I know, and I have to live with that every day. Sung-hoon placed a hand on Dawn's shoulder, brief, grounding. We have what we need. Let's go. Dawn turned toward the door, then stopped. Without looking back, she spoke one final time. If we get Camila out, I am coming back for your family too. Not because you deserve it, because they do not deserve to be punished for your choices. She left before Remy could respond. In the corridor outside, Dawn leaned against the wall, struggling to breathe. Sung-hoon stood beside her, giving her space but staying close enough that she could feel his presence. You did not have to promise that, he said quietly. Yes, I did. Because if I do not hold on to something good, something worth saving, I am going to drown in all of this. Sung-hoon studied her for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He reached out and tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. This time, I will not fail you, he said, each word deliberate. Your sister will survive this, and so will you. It was not comfort. It was not reassurance. It was a promise delivered with the same lethal certainty he used when eliminating enemies. Dawn wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this man, this dangerous, damaged stranger, could actually keep his word. But trust was a luxury she could no longer afford. When do we leave? She asked instead. Tonight. We hit the facility at 3 a.m., when guard rotations are weakest. Sung-hoon released her chin. Get some rest. You are going to need it. As they walked toward the exit, Dawn felt the weight of what was coming settle over her like a shroud. In less than 12 hours, she would either save her sister or lose everything that mattered. And the man walking beside her, the one who promised not to fail, was the same kind of monster who had put Camila in danger in the first place. But he was also the only chance she had left. The decommissioned psychiatric hospital rose from the Catskill mountainside, like a monument to forgotten suffering. 3 stories of crumbling brick and barred windows, surrounded by forest so dense the moonlight barely penetrated. Dawn crouched beside Sung-hoon in the tree line, watching thermal signatures move through the building's interior on his tactical display. 8 guards on perimeter patrol, whispered Bronte Foss. Sung-hoon's lead operative, a woman with silver-streaked hair and scars that told stories she never shared. 4 more inside. Medical wing is 2 levels below ground. Dawn's heart hammered against her ribs. Somewhere in that building, Camila was connected to machines, trapped in a nightmare Dawn had been too blind to see. "We move in 3 minutes," Sung-hoon said, checking his weapon. He glanced at Dawn. "You stay behind Bronte. You do exactly what she says. Understood?" Dawn nodded, her throat too tight for words. The infiltration was surgical. Bronte's team disabled perimeter sensors with practiced efficiency, neutralized guards with suppressed weapons and chemical sedatives. They moved through the facility like ghosts, descending into the subterranean levels where fluorescent lights hummed and the air smelled of antiseptic and fear. The medical wing was behind reinforced doors marked with biohazard warnings. Sung-hoon entered the access codes Remy had provided. The locks disengaged with a pneumatic hiss. Inside was a corridor lined with observation windows. Most of the rooms stood empty, their medical equipment gathering dust. But at the end of the hall, behind triple-paned glass, Dawn saw her, Camila. Her sister lay on a reclined surgical bed, eyes closed, breathing steady. Cables ran from a port at the base of her skull to a bank of monitors displaying neural activity in real time. IV lines fed into both arms. Her skin had the pallor of someone who had not seen sunlight in months. Dawn's legs gave out. Bronte caught her, held her upright. "I have got you," the operative murmured. "Stay focused." Sung-hoon moved to the door's control panel, working to override the lock. 2 minutes. We extract her, we leave. No deviations. Dawn pressed her hand against the glass. Camila looked so small, so fragile. Nothing like the vibrant architecture student who had talked endlessly about designing sustainable housing, who had laughed too loud at bad jokes, who had been Dawn's only family after their parents died. "Camila," Dawn whispered, "I am here. I am going to get you out." The door lock clicked open. Sung-hoon entered first, weapon raised, scanning for threats. Bronte followed, her team securing the perimeter. Dawn rushed to Camila's side, her hands hovering over the cables and tubes, afraid to touch anything that might hurt her. "We need to disconnect her carefully," Sung-hoon said, examining the neural interface. "If we damage the connection—" The lights flickered. A soft hissing sound filled the room. Bronte's head snapped up. "Gas! It is the failsafe. Masks, now." But it was already too late. The compound moved faster than any of them could react, military-grade sedative designed to bypass standard respiratory filters. Dawn saw Bronte stumble, saw the other operatives drop to their knees, weapons clattering to the floor. Sung-hoon grabbed Dawn's arm, tried to pull her toward the exit. "Run! Get out of here!" Dawn's vision blurred. Her legs refused to obey. She watched Sung-hoon's face twist with fury, and something that looked almost like fear as he fought against the chemical assault. His body swaying, his grip on her arm tightening and then loosening. "No," Dawn tried to say, but the word dissolved into nothing. The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was Sung-hoon collapsing beside her, his hand still reaching for hers, his eyes holding hers until consciousness fled. Dawn woke to the smell of sterile metal and the sensation of restraints cutting into her wrists. She was strapped to a surgical bed identical to Camila's, her arms immobilized, her legs secured at the ankles. Beside her, still unconscious, Camila breathed steadily, unaware of the nightmare unfolding. Across the room, separated by a wall of reinforced glass, stood a woman Dawn had only seen in photographs. Dr. Naledi Amsel was striking, tall, elegant, with dark skin and sharp features that spoke of intelligence and cruelty in equal measure. She wore a white lab coat over expensive clothing, her hair pulled back in a perfect twist. She studied Dawn the way a scientist studies a specimen. "You are awake," Naledi said, her accent placing her somewhere in southern Africa. "Good. I hate conducting conversations with unconscious subjects. It lacks a certain satisfaction." Dawn pulled against the restraints. "Let us go." "Let you go?" Naledi laughed, the sound crystalline and cold. Dawn, you walked into my facility. You brought exactly what I needed directly to me. Why would I let you go now? The deal was. The deal was a fiction designed to move pieces on a board. Naledi approached the glass, her eyes glittering with triumph. Did you really think I would let you rescue Camila? Did you honestly believe you had any agency in this situation? I have been controlling every aspect of your life for 3 years. Your sister's attack, your financial desperation, your employment in Sung-hoon's household, all of it orchestrated to bring us to this exact moment. Dawn's chest constricted. What do you want? I want to complete my research. The neural implants in Camila's brain are functional, but they require a specific genetic marker to achieve full integration. A marker that you share, Dawn. You and Camila are genetic matches. Same blood type, same neurological structure, same compatibility factors. With both of you, I can perfect the technology and sell it for $40 billion to buyers who have been waiting very patiently. Terror flooded through Dawn's veins. You are going to experiment on me. I am going to complete what I started, and this time I will have 2 subjects to verify my results. Dawn twisted her head, searching the room for any sign of help. That was when she saw him. Sung-hoon Han stood on the other side of the glass partition, beside Naledi, unrestrained, armed, very much conscious and alert. Dawn's heart shattered. No, she whispered. Sung-hoon, no. He did not look at her. His expression was carved from stone, revealing nothing. Naledi's smile widened. Did you really think he came to save you? Sung-hoon Han does not save anyone, Dawn. He collects assets. He makes deals. And you, and your sister, are the most valuable assets in this building. You are lying. But even as Dawn said it, she could hear the doubt in her own voice. Am I? Tell her, darling. Tell her about our arrangement. Sung-hoon finally looked at Dawn. His eyes were black, empty, holding no warmth. No recognition of the promises he had made in that federal detention facility corridor. The deal, he said quietly, each word landing like a hammer blow, was that I bring you to Naledi. In exchange, she gives me back control of my organization and removes the federal surveillance. That was always the deal. Dawn felt something inside her break, something fundamental and irreparable. After everything, after trusting him despite every instinct screaming not to, after believing his promise that he would not fail her, she had been nothing more than a transaction. Naledi moved closer to the glass, studying Dawn's devastation with clinical interest. You see, Dawn? In the end, everyone betrays everyone. It is simply a matter of finding the right price. Dawn closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. She had been a fool, a desperate, naive fool, who had believed that somewhere in the darkness, someone might actually choose to do the right thing. She had been wrong, and now she and Camila would both pay the price for that mistake. Naledi turned away from the glass partition, her attention shifting to a bank of monitors displaying Camila's neural readouts. We will begin the procedures within the hour. I want both subjects prepped and sedated before. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Naledi's body jerked forward, a bloom of red spreading across her white lab coat. She stumbled, her hand reaching for the wound in her chest, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. She turned slowly, impossibly slowly, to face Sung-hoon. He stood with his weapon raised, smoke curling from the barrel, his expression carved from ice and vengeance. The deal, he said quietly, was that I would bring you Dawn Rogers. I never said I would let you keep her. Naledi collapsed to her knees, blood pooling beneath her. You cannot. I can. Sung-hoon crossed the room in 3 strides, standing over the woman who had orchestrated his downfall. Did you really think I would give you everything you wanted? Did you honestly believe I had forgotten what you took from me? He fired twice more, Precise, methodical shots that ensured Naledi would never rise again. Dawn stared through the glass partition, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. Sung-hoon stepped over Naledi's body and moved to the control panel, his fingers flying across the interface. The glass wall separating them retracted with a hydraulic hiss. He crossed to Dawn's surgical bed and began releasing her restraints, his movements efficient and controlled. Dawn's wrists came free first, then her ankles. She sat up slowly, her entire body trembling. "You killed her," Dawn whispered. "Yes. But you said the deal was staged." Sung-hoon met her eyes, and for the first time since the gas had knocked them unconscious, she saw something real in his expression. "Naledi needed to believe I had betrayed you. It was the only way to get close enough to end this without risking your life or Camila's." Dawn's hands went to her face, covering her eyes as the emotional whiplash crashed over her. "You could have told me." If you had known, she would have seen it. Naledi read people the way I read contracts. Your fear, your despair, it had to be real. Or she would have known something was wrong. He moved to Camila's bed, carefully examining the neural interface. "I am sorry I put you through that, but I needed you alive more than I needed you to trust me." Dawn lowered her hands, watching him work with steady precision to disconnect Camila from the machines. "How do we know it is safe to move her?" "We do not. But leaving her here is certain death, and I will take uncertain survival over that any day." He lifted Camila carefully, cradling her against his chest. "Can you walk?" Dawn tested her legs, found them shaky but functional. "Yes." "Then we leave. Now." They moved through the facility's corridors, past the sedated bodies of Naledi's security team. Bronte and her operatives had recovered and systematically neutralized every threat. The team regrouped at the extraction point, a service tunnel that led to the forest beyond. Bronte took Camila from Sung-hoon, carrying her with surprising gentleness. "Charges are set. We have 4 minutes before this place becomes a crater." They ran. The November night air hit Dawn's lungs like ice water, sharp and clarifying. Behind them, the facility erupted in a series of controlled explosions, fire blooming against the darkness, consuming Naledi's research, her equipment, every trace of the nightmare she had built. Dawn watched it burn and felt nothing. No triumph, no relief, just exhaustion. 3 weeks later, Dawn sat in a private medical suite overlooking Central Park. Camila lay in the hospital bed, awake now, her neural implants stabilized but permanent. Removing them would kill her, but destroying the technology that controlled them had freed her from Naledi's influence. "You look tired," Camila said softly, her voice still weak but unmistakably hers. "I have not slept much," Dawn admitted. "Because of him?" Dawn did not need to ask who Camila meant. Sung-hoon had arranged this facility, had hired the specialist treating Camila's condition, had ensured that every resource Dawn needed was available without question. He had also kept his distance, communicating through intermediaries, giving Dawn space she had not asked for. "He kept his promise," Dawn said. "You are alive, safe." "And Remy's family?" "Extracted from Ukraine 2 weeks ago. Anya and Sophie are in protective custody, waiting for Remy's trial to conclude." Dawn stood, moving to the window. "Everything worked out the way it was supposed to. Except you are still here, in his city, under his protection." Dawn pressed her forehead against the glass. "I do not know where else to go." The door opened behind her. Dawn did not need to turn around to know who it was. She had learned to recognize his presence, the subtle shift in air pressure, the controlled silence that followed him like a shadow. "I need to speak with Dawn," Sung-hoon said quietly. "Alone." Camila glanced between them, then nodded. "I will be fine. Take your time." When they were alone, Sung-hoon moved to stand beside Dawn at the window. For a long moment, neither spoke. Remy's family is safe, he said finally. The charges against him are being reduced to time served in exchange for testimony about Naledi's network. He will be free within 6 months. Thank you. Do not thank me. I did it because you asked, not because I am a good person. Dawn turned to face him. Why did you really save us? And do not tell me it was just about destroying Naledi. You could have done that without protecting Camila or keeping your promises to me. Sung-hoon was quiet for so long Dawn thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost vulnerable. Because you were the first person in years who looked at me and saw something worth saving instead of something to be used or destroyed. And I wanted— He stopped, his jaw tightening. I wanted to prove you were not wrong. Dawn felt something shift in her chest. What happens now? That depends on you. Sung-hoon met her eyes. You can walk away. Take Camila. Disappear. Build a new life somewhere I will never find you. I will make sure you have the resources to do it safely. Or you stay, work with me. There are more people like Naledi out there, people who profit from suffering, who build empires on the broken. You have skills I need. I have resources you could use. We could do something useful with all this damage we carry. It was not a declaration of love. It was not even friendship. It was an offer wrapped in darkness and possibility, delivered by a man who had saved her life while teaching her exactly how dangerous he could be. Dawn should walk away, should take Camila and run as far from Sung-hoon Han as possible. But she had spent 3 years running, and it had brought her nowhere but back to this moment. If I stay, Dawn said carefully, we do this my way. No lies. No manipulation. If we are working together, we are equals. Something that might have been respect flickered in Sung-hoon's eyes. Agreed. And Camila stays protected. Always. You have my word. Dawn took a breath, feeling the weight of the choice settle over her. Then I will stay. For now. Sung-hoon moved closer, close enough that she could see the scars beneath his collar, the evidence of battles he had survived. When he spoke, his voice was dark velvet and promised violence. If you stay, I will protect you. But if you go, Dawn— He paused, letting the words hang between them. I will still find you. It was not a threat. It was something far more dangerous. It was a promise that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Dawn held his gaze, refusing to look away. Then I guess you will have to get used to me being difficult to catch. Sung-hoon smiled, a rare, genuine expression that transformed his face into something almost beautiful. I am counting on it.